Hmm. Okay, so welcome to chapter 23. Do you do business like a man or a woman? And well, I was saying to Michelle, she's out by a day, but for us on this side of the world, it's still International Women's Day. So it's kind of funny the chapter landed on today, and you have Rachel O'Brien and Michelle MacDonald as your GCFs today. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Exactly, across all time zones.
Yay, do you do business like a man or a woman?
So I suppose, Michelle, I haven't been on the book club for a while. It's your book club. What would you like to get out of it? That's what I always start with. What information, what questions can we be for ye? This chapter has been a huge contribution to my life in that I actually do business like a man. So this chapter talks about, do you do business as a man or a woman? And so will I introduce it, Michelle, or would you like to introduce it, darling?
You can go. You're on a roll.
Okay. So basically, there's men do business like, can you look after this? Can you send this email? Can you send this link? And women do business with more emotions in it. They take more time. And so the purpose of the information in this chapter, it's not to make anyone right or wrong. The purpose of the information is that if you know where you function from and you know who you're speaking to, the actual purpose of it is to build more communion with you and the people that you deal with in business on a daily basis. That's the purpose of this chapter. And so that you actually begin to ask questions about how you function. I'm a no fluffs girl. I tend not to do the emotional stuff. I'm just like, hey, can we look after do. And this actually would have worked against me in some areas. I see Michelle is nodding. So first of all, look at how you interact with people. Do you have to have a conversation? And do they require for you to get to know them? Do they require to have a sense into a project, whether it works for them, if they require more information? And that's really a woman's way of doing business. A man's way... A man's way of doing business is very cut to the point. I can be that, and then I have to remind myself, oh, the person that I'm dealing with, they actually like to have a chat, and particularly if it's a host, they require, I call it sandwiching, a little hello piece, then the information, and a little goodbye piece. So that's what, Michelle, would you like to know information? Michelle, what would you like to add to that?
So it's really interesting because while you were talking, I went and looked back through my career and where there were times that men treated me like a woman when they were doing business with me, and so they'd stop and they'd chit chat and they'd build that relationship, and that was cool. But most of the time, especially because I work from home and as a solopreneur, I do business like a man. It's like just cut to the point, just I need this bang, 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 bang. And there are times when I've come unstuck. And Simone says this as well, is you have to sort of step back and like, and I just apologize and then I start with the sugar or the fluff or whatever it is. How's your week been? And everything else. And I notice when I am under the pump, I flat out do business like a man without thinking, which are those times that sometimes I do get into strife. So sometimes it's about drafting that email, especially if you're a solopreneur, and then stepping away. And whether you go and get a cup of tea or something, or hang the washing on the line, or go to another meeting and come back and then reread it with a fresh set of eyes, allows you to go, okay, where's this person at? What do they require here? Yeah.
That's brilliant. So guys, have you any questions on that? Again, the purpose of this information is not to make you right or wrong. It is just so that you get clear on how you function, particularly in regard to communication with people in business, so that you can be clear on what you can add or what you can change in the person that you're dealing with. There's a little story in the book, I think it's maybe the last page of this chapter, And Simone, Gary was sitting behind her, the story says, and she was writing an email to a woman. And Gary said to her, who are you writing this email to? And she said, a woman. And he said, I'd have to check it, but it's something like you may want to dress it up, or he basically, this is how the conversation came up. If you find the piece, shout out.
Yeah, it says, one day, this is Simone, one day I was writing a business email. Gary happened to be looking over my shoulder and he asked who you were sending in that email to, a man or a woman. I answered a woman. He said, you're treating her like a man. You're only giving her the information she needs. That's how men function. They just want to know, can we do this or not? You have to communicate differently to a woman. They wish to discuss things more. That's when you throw in, how was your weekend? Or what do you think about this? Or what's your opinion? How would you do this? So there's all these questions that you can, to get that engagement that that women require. And also it's about, as Rachel said, it's about like for your awareness, so you can create and generate in your business with greater ease and joy. It's about what will create the most for everyone involved.
Yeah. So guys, again, the information is not to make you right or wrong. It's just information so that you know where you function from. So if there's a wonky energy that you actually like, how does this person function, like a woman or like a man? And then you get clarity on how you can actually interact with them to create more possibilities. And the other piece in this chapter too is when we first started the Joy business, and one of the questions is, what is your point of view of business? And for me, I had a point of view that men created business more than women. And that was the program that I grew up around, you know. Also, the piece that had stuck me, and it came up a couple of times after running this judgment process. It's called the judgment process, and if you'd like to have it run, get in contact with a CF or a JCF. And the judgment process is, what have I made this mean? Who am I in regard to this? So when I was looking at first starting up my own business, my own access business, I realized that I had a lot of points of views about men that were in business, and I had worked with a lot of women that became bitches when it came to business, like literally like, and that had really been for me, that wasn't an energy that I was attracted to. It wasn't an energy that it wasn't fun. It wasn't creative. It was a real cutthroat, we call it in Ireland. I'm not too sure if that's international or just an Irish term of words. So
what is it?
Cutthroat.
Cutthroat.
Yeah. So I had dealt any women that had a lot of what we would call power or authority in the business place. I can see you nodding, Tanya. They had this real aggressive, brash, it was like they had to take on this role to actually carry out their duties. Okay. And I'm going to be honest, this actually came up for me in the interaction of my own business, where I had to learn to ask for what I required from a place of complete presence of how I delivered what I required, and also not this push energy that actually pushes people away. And I actually think your voice, and I know it's right voice for you, I actually think your voice in business and how you interact with people can actually make or break a lot of projects, to be honest. For me, our businesses, we do have to sell. And if you don't have sales, you haven't got a business. And if you're not able to communicate what you require in business, or if you can't communicate with people who are hosting you, who are working with you, whether that be graphics, whether it be organizing events. So to have this clarity with information, you have to be really willing to be present and ask a question. And for me, to build the muscle of being, hey, what's being created with this class? what's going on with the venue, what is the contract with the venue. And you know, guys, don't make yourself wrong. We had something that didn't work out recently. It was a miscommunication. Always ask yourself, what do I know now that I haven't known before? What am I aware of now that I haven't been aware of before? And the beauty in this then is when you have the information that you require, it's a process is what I'm saying. The practicing of being present and not going to, not getting this, taking on this persona as such with your business, that you be you in the joy of business is always about instilling chaos, which is question. What can we create? Possibilities, allowing people to contribute. And that's the whole basis of the joy of business, is where we're looking to be a contribution to the creation of a class, to the creation of a service, to the creation of a product, whatever you're in. And for me, the softness of a woman in business can actually create a lot more. Michelle?
It's not resisting and reacting and agreeing and aligning with any way that you see business done in any time. And I say that in like years early on in my career, I saw a woman, and it was a very male-dominated environment, stand there and throw a tantrum and do tears. And I was absolutely gobsmacked and horrified that, like, I could see the outright manipulation there and then. And I was like, well, she got what she wanted, but I am never, ever, ever going to do business like that. And so I just, you just cut out a chunk of an awareness of when people are doing that to you. Since then, I have, I've pock and potted all of that. And I haven't done a tantrum, but there have been times when I've used tears, not necessarily in a business sense, but to create the most out of the situation. Because what women tend to do, and Gary says is, women can be great manipulators in business. They can make things go the way they wish and bring everyone else along with their ideas and plans. Some people see manipulation as being crafty or even fraudulent, and that can be part of its definition. It also means to handle a situation artfully, easily or skillfully, and that's what I'm talking about. So it's like, what can you do, and what and who can you be to create the most in this situation for everyone involved? Not just for you, but for the outcome of the idea, the outcome of the business, the outcome of everyone that's involved in that project. And Aviva says she's nodding off. She'll catch a replay. Good night, all. So good night, Aviva.
Rest well.
And it's just having your awareness hat on and just identifying how everyone's operating. Because later on, when it's just like, let's say there's someone that you don't get along with that great, but you're on a project together, and if you've been observing them and how they operate, when it comes time for you to ask how for them to contribute to the project, and then what would they like to contribute, and all of that, then if you step into their arena of how they operate, so whether it's like a man and and whether you have a quick jibe about footy or whatever else, and then you start, or it's about business and you extrapolate on what's happening in your life, what are you doing with the kids, what are you doing this summer, that can all create and change and move the project along in so many ways that you didn't imagine could.
Totally, and it's all about being in the question and being aware of the energy and being willing to receive people. We've been trained to give people, whereas actually the joy of business and this whole communication, being a man and being a woman, it's actually being the chaos of what they can receive. That's all we're always being told is what we can give. No, it's not about that. It's the chaos that the person can receive. And what that actually energetically means is being the space where you can always create more possibilities. And guys, I suppose we all have days that we're a bit tired or a bit, whatever might show up. And And sometimes when we name that with someone, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? Are you ready to work? Sometimes it's not a time to look at a project. It might, you know, so all of this is information in how to be with creation. And please talk to us, like, is there areas where you're stuck in this? Is there areas where you're stuck in communication? Is there areas where you're not willing to use your manipulation capacities as a woman? Men, a lot of men, remember, every single man has had a mother, and they're usually looking to make them happy. And if they're proven stuff, that in itself is another energy, where they're wanting to be seen right. So I find that I can manipulate men very easily in business. That is something that for me is quite easy to do, and not from a place I'm like, can we just take a read off this? Can we look at this again and how it's worded? If you read that, how would that come across to you? Because you've got to look at the purpose of this chapter is you've got to look at the person that you're actually communicating with. Okay, this is what Gary says. Do you know how easy things would be for you if you used a little manipulation? Okay. And a lot of the times, well, maybe this is an Irish point of view, I find it can be international. A lot of the times we've bought that we have to actually cut off us being a woman when it comes to being in business. And that's actually not true. Now, the whole piece that Michelle said about the girl doing the drama and crying, that's not going, my personal point of view is the only thing that's going to create is more drama. And I wouldn't have honor for someone who talk about the 5 elements of intimacy. And you can always apply them to the joy of business. How can you hold someone in business and in questions and in creation if they carry on like a 5-year-old, you know? That for me is like, I'm not sure I'd like to be working with someone like that.
Well, you also have an awareness now of the way that they operate. So if they're men, they're either going to try and avoid it, so she's done manipulation well, or they're going to just get jack shit of it every time she does it, and then it's just like she'll be out the door. So
yeah,
because it is that drama and trauma that that's being instilled in the workplace.
Yeah. And also, guys, let's also, Michelle, talk about men in business. I've worked with a lot of men, and they seem to have this point of view. It's like we talk about, you know, when we run the implant band, all the implanted points of views that we've been implanted with. Just take a look, like, we're not talking about joy business here, because joy business is only starting in the world, really. When you look at, like, let's say mainstream business, men have this point of view that they have to be right and they're required to be the authority, and they can't be wrong, and they're like give orders and follow orders and all this energy, you know, and a lot of the times that in itself, you know, we've had lots of men that have come to joy business classes, and that doesn't always create, you know, there can be an exclusion in that. And there's a line in the book that says the difficulty with this approach is these days very few people are willing to follow blindly. If you're working with humanoids, no following blindly there. And
with men, it's a lot of it's masculine and some of it's aggressive, and it's just like, but that's not generative to a project or a workplace. So it's reading that. What keeps popping into my head is I used to work with, I was in investment banking and worked with men in a really small and tight environment, and man, they were bitchy. And people say women were bitchy, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but men are bitchy in just a totally different way. And it's knowing that, so then when they were talking and then they'd ask me something, that how I could then, you know, interact with them and not interact with them and bring it back up out of that.
Yeah, and that's the place where you're in the question. I worked years ago, I used to work for a company, and we basically we used to provide services to the building construction area, so it'd be carpenters, electricians, plumbers, whatever was required. It was a recruitment agency, so there was just all men and me. And I would see how there was so much expectation of this persona that they had to put on in business to be authoritative or to be listened to or heard, or the demand. And guys, there was 2 guys that worked with me, and they were probably the greatest manipulators I've ever met in my whole life. And you know, we look after you, or the tap in the back, and they always had gratitude for the guys that worked. And I saw the 2 of them, their sales, when they'd place someone in a construction site, they'd get a percentage, you know, for every person that they recruited. And the 2 of them, I used to do the commissions. Their sales were through the roof. Their sales, no one else was anywhere near the commissions that they were making. And what they had created is they were cajolers, we used to call them. And the other side of it is, while they were cajolers, they genuinely usually liked the people that they recruited and the people that were going to do a good job they looked after. So I saw how that push energy didn't create. And the people that didn't do that, where they were they were skilled in their communication and their recruitment. They really were, and how they dealt with people. I've watched people like this in business over the years, and they are brilliant creators. They really are.
Who's got any questions? Hi, Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Okay, so Tanya, I am planning a series of pamper evenings with a human. She's a masseuse, and I gifted her an Access facelift, and now she's bringing me on board. I'm older than her and would really like to avoid being a superior bitch. I would like to have fun. What questions can I ask here?
Well, what comes up for me straight away is, what energy, space, and consciousness can me and my body be to be the superior bitch from hell with total ease for all eternity? Good and bad, right and wrong, all 9 pot and pock, shorts, boys and ons. Guys, it's very simple. If you're not willing to be a superior bitch, if you're not willing to be the energy of that, it means you won't be aware of someone when they're choosing it. So, and if you have a judgment over that, when I have to say something now, I'll say it, whereas I had massive judgment that I had to pull back or not be as so straight. When I am a controlling demon bitch from hell when I am in projects. Let's throw it out there. I like it to be a certain way. I like it to move in a certain way. And a lot of the times as women, we have made a wrongness in regard to that. So just look at that. If she's planning this series of events, you have to look at what you would like to have fun with. What is going to work for you? Get clear. Number one, how come I'm choosing this? Well, you know, what's the energy of it? Does it add to my life? She's going to introduce you to people. How does it get any better than that? You know, how many evenings are you doing? I'm not too sure what the deal is. Make sure you have a deal and deliver. Michelle will talk to you more on this. If you haven't got a deal and deliver, is there a percentage? What's the deal? Are you just going in and giving a massage? How much are you charging for it? Is she getting a cut because she's introducing you? There are so many questions to ask on this. Okay, you've got to get clear on a series of pamper evenings. Okay, who's the creator? What's the deal? She is my masseuse, and I gifted her a facelift. So how much are you getting paid for the facelift? The older than her, not too sure what you mean by that. Are you wiser? Do you know more? And what actually, because sometimes you know stuff. A lot of people think you don't know it, and you really do know how to create. Are you okay if she's willing to be the superior bitch? You know, Gary says you can pretend to be controlled but never be controlled. I have a few people that I'm like, oh yeah, I'll totally do that, and I have no intention of doing it. So please ask questions about if she thinks she has to be controlled with you. Are you willing to be controlled? So there is so much in the creation.
And everywhere you're not willing there, Tanya, you now just throw it on credit all. Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, pock, all nine shots, boys and beyonds. While you were talking, Rachel, Tanya's going, no.
Like it's a whole project. I mean, to me, in those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines, there's so much. Planning a series of pamper evenings. How many are you planning? You know, what times are you doing them? How much time is being allocated for a massage? How much time is being allocated for facelift? What are you charging? Is the charger price inclusive of the masseuse and the facelift? And have you all this in a deal and deliver? Because what will get created is if she's introducing you and she's like, oh, I'm going to bring Tanya in and pay her 20%, or I'll charge €150 and give her 80, or might give her 50. You got to get clear going, otherwise you're going to be in there. And I've had phone calls from people around this. You don't know what the deal and deliver is, and because you're not clear on what are you going to deliver, what is she going to deliver, the purpose of the deal and deliver is so that you are aware of what someone else is going to deliver. Then you end up being peed off, as we say in Ireland. Then you end up being disappointed, frustrated. For what reason would you lead to that? If you have the information beforehand, at least you can make a choice, and then you can choose, okay, this works for me, you know, whatever the deal is on the first 6 Pampers. If it goes a success and we're going to do another series of 12, then I'd like to be paid this. So at least sometimes, you know, when we're, you know, starting off in business, we're willing to do things, you know, to launch it, to get it up and running, to get the information out there, for less than what you do when you're established. And I'm not saying that you have to do that at all. I'm just saying that, you know, people choose this as well. Anything you'd like to add to that, Michelle?
And anywhere that you're doubting your awareness, destroy it and correct that. Yeah. So everywhere that you like, I don't know, or you are aware of it but choose not to be aware of it, like you have to talk to your business here. And you're like, what do you require out of this deal? Not just you, not just what do I, but as your business, what do you require out of this? What would be fun for you? What would this look like for you? And so you've got like this, you can do what works for you, and it's all going to fall apart if that is not in your business's idea of fun whatsoever.
Yeah. And another thing, and this is a big one for me, when I first did the Joy business, I can't remember what chapter is it now. Clear your projections, expectations, separations, and judgments. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're not clear on projections, expectations, separations, and judgments, if you aren't even aware that you've projections, expectations, separations, judgments, then you've all this projection on the person. You're in fantasy, get your hopes and dreams bars run. You're like, la la la, it's all going to work out because I know Melanie and she's my friend, and you know, la 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 la. And that's just not the way it is. I mean, it requires, and it's an honoring of the other person too. Hey, we're going to do this project. What would you like from it? Okay, what would I like from it? How much are we going to charge? What will honor us? How are we going to present it? Who's going to do the graphics? Who's going to do the, you know, the Facebook event? Who's going to start the list? Where are the people that we are actually looking to create this for? Where's our market? And not narrowing it to a market, also being aware of who you're looking to invite to.
Yeah, and how you can, like by narrowing it, like by asking about the market without narrowing it and defining it, gives you the awareness of where you can tap into them. So that's the purpose of that question. Your sound's off, Tanya. There's a little microphone. Yeah,
yes, thank you. Thank you. I didn't understand what you said then, Michelle. You said something, I didn't get it.
I have no idea what I said. Did you hear it, Rachel?
You were talking about not like deal and deliver, but not defining it, not making it, you know, so small and real. Like.
Yes.
Okay, thank
yes.
you.
So by asking the question about where your target market is,
yeah,
you can, without defining it, but you know where their playground is to reach them.
Okay, got it. Yeah, yeah.
So you can promote there. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Yes, there's a lot more to this than I thought, but it's really good because it's like I would kind of like go in and with a blanket over my face and then feel unhappy. Yeah. I've set up the meeting and I've set it up where I want the meeting to be in a hotel. And I said, oh, it's going to be easy parking. And I want it to be somewhere really nice and fancy. And so we get an idea that it's not just a couple of women that live at home, that work from home, just doing a little dabbling. It's going to be something that's going to look professional and it's going to look, worthwhile, and for people to want to come to it.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you talked about like that whole thing from women being at home doing a bit of dabbling. Mm-hmm. I'm in my office now, and I chose to start working from the office I have a little office that I use in Dublin and one in Cork, and I chose to start working from an office about a year, maybe 2 years ago now. It just presents a different.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It does, and I'm so glad, because if you know from the start that we're not going to be the little women making a little side small amount, no, actually we're going to be a presence here that provides a high-end service of massage and facelift. Everything in it is going to be beautiful, and that's what we're looking to create. It does create a different energy for sure.
Absolutely, because I have a bars clinic. I have 2 running, and I wanted to go out to work. I wanted to have a job, so I've hired a hall, and it's a little bit expensive, but it's a beautiful hall, and my patients come there. And I've got somewhere else in another county where exactly the same thing happens. And so it's like, I go out to work, I drive to work, I dress up for work. I've got my stuff with me, but it just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And what just popped into my mind is, while working with this person, before you begin working, is secret agendas. You need to know what their agenda is with you, what your agenda is with them. And I say this because what if they're, they could be, like, well, you're not prepared to be back then, in that last 10 seconds ago, you didn't want to be the superior bitch. But what if that's required, and what if actually that person is looking to you to be that person for them? And and how can you empower them to know that they know? So how can you, and like, what an awesome opportunity that you can, with someone that's younger, help them create their business through asking questions as well, and empowering them, rather than they just think that they've got to do business the way that they've been taught.
Sure. I'm doing the thing with Dane, Intro to Being, and she's one of the first people that have signed up for that. She says she's going to come. And
awesome.
Yeah. So it's like, and so my point of view about working with humans, it's like, I mean, I've got a point of view about
that. And everything that is, would you like to destroy it and create it all?
Yes.
Batman, good, bad, pop, all 9 shorts, boys and beyond. Because what if she's a phenomenal connector and she's human? How can your business use that and her business use you?
I hadn't thought about that.
To be super generative. Because what you've just done is you've just cut out 50% of the market by saying, I'm not going to work with humans.
No, I didn't. But I'm just going, I'm a bit cautious about working with humans. That's what I'm saying.
And if your awareness is tapped on and you know that how they function, how can you deliver your communication of what you need to them in their language?
Oh, that's the thing that I stumble across. That really is my stumbling. Today I went to check out somewhere to work from, and I asked, how can I speak in the way this woman could hear? And she was not at all with me. Nowhere. There was nowhere. And then I said something to her. I said, well, how can I assist you? And she just completely stopped and just looked at me. And that was the only time in the conversation she was present. And when I came in, all her barriers were up. Who are you? What are you doing? And I'm wanting to go, I'm going to do this. And she, I'm open to that. And I knew she wasn't. The whole conversation was, I knew she wasn't. Well, I better show you where. And I said, tell me how much it costs, all these things. I must write this down. There was something funny going on. And then she showed me the property that I was going to rent. And it was horrific. It was, the only thing good about it was there was a lake. And it was a hut. Our hut at home is more beautiful than that hut she was showing me. It smelled damp. It smelled possibly of wheat. It had little gas. What? And I had to hold my breath. And I went, oh, I'm not sure whether the Wi-Fi connection will work here. No, this woman was like, wow. An experience that, yeah. She was hiding that, I suppose. I don't know. Yeah.
Just a little point here that I'd like to address, the purpose of the humanoid conversation is not to create judgment. And I see people do that all the time, and I'm not saying that you are. When we talk about access, one of the tools is not to resist and react to anything or align and agree, because the moment that you do, you're in their reality. Whereas if humans function, humanoids always make themselves wrong. Humans always make the other person wrong. Anytime that, if you're checking in, have I a point of view or is it an awareness? A point of view will always make the other person wrong. There's crackling on the line, I'm not sure. Okay, and this gave me so much clarity. A point of view will always make the other person wrong, or a judgment will make the other person wrong. Okay, whereas awareness is space. It's a space. It's like, oh wow, now this is what I choose to create with humans. They usually have a lot about a judgment about what they deliver. They have a lot of force. So if they have a judgment in their world of what they require, you can actually use that judgment to outcreate them.
Oh wow, that was so beyond what I can. Oh wow, okay. So coming back to the masseurs, last night we were at a business presentation. She's going into another business as well. And she said, I'm doing this for my children. And I know that's her vulnerable part, her children.
She's creating her business for her kids, is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now she's judgment of herself that she has to create money for her kids. So you can be like, so have you grandkids? Have you kids?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay, so what's her point of view? What can you be like, oh, I'm doing this to pay my rent? You've got to be willing, if people have a judgment, you've got to be willing to outcreate their judgment, because you now know that she's looking to look after her children. So you've got to be willing to see where people are. You see, this is the peace, guys, and this is the peace that everything will be created from. When you've an awareness of everything and judge nothing, and someone has a judgment of why they have to why they have to create business, because I have to look after my kids. Oh my God, let us make lots of money so you can really look after your kids. How cool would that be?
Oh, I've just realised what I've been doing. I've been really superior bitching her, because I've been going, well, in my head I've been going, well, I don't really need to do this because I've got plenty of money. You see? Oh yeah.
And everywhere that you are inviting money into your life, you've now destroyed and created.
Boing, boing.
Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, boys and beyond.
Thank you. This is me, superior bitch, smug. I'm more smug than superior bitch.
And look, listen. Yeah. I had some stupid points of views. I had some, points of views that got in the way of me creating more possibilities. What were the purpose of these tools is allowance. We talk about the tool of allowance, which is basically what Gary says in the BARS manual. I am giving you something to function in this reality in a different way. That's why Simone created the Joy Business. She is giving you tools to function in business a different way. Mm-hmm. That is the whole target of the Joy of Business, to get consciousness and awareness about how you function in regard to business. You've just got an awareness now. Oh, wow, I did judgment over that, okay? Yeah. Awesome. Here's the tool of allowance, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Oh my God, I had so much judgment on that. Cool. How does it get any better? Yes. And usually, remember, all judgment stops receiving. So if now you energetically look at that judgment in your business, how much was that? as Michelle said, you refusing to receive from this woman. I see people and they're not willing to receive from humans. Personally, I think they're pretty simple to work with. You got to look at like what actually is going to create more. They have so much judgment in their world, and if you're aware of your judgment and use your awareness to your advantage, now don't do that, whatever you do. When you use your awareness to your advantage, you're targeting the judgment that they can receive you through their filter.
Just like a little bit beyond.
And a human,
Explain that, Rachel.
Go, Rachel.
I'm getting
Rachel, for the layman, Rachel. Lay woman.
Okay.
I'm thick as two short planks.
Okay, so what I'm saying to you is if someone has a judgment in place, for example, a guy one time came to our stall and he had a beautiful 17-year-old daughter with him, okay? And his judgment was he had to be a good father. And we were like, hey, would you like to get your bars run? It really contributes to having way more ease as a parent. And it actually creates a lot more ease for your daughter as well. His judgment is he'd like to be a good father. So what are we using? His judgment to outcreate.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If you have people that are focused on judgment of money, okay, what can you use to outcreate them? Their judgment of money.
And if you get back to basics, if you tell a human to do something, they'll do it. They're the ones that purchase everyone else's success formula. You tell a humanoid to do something, and then they come back with all the reasons why they can't. Because of all their limitations and popped up and everything else.
Oh, God. Oh, wow. Wow.
Did we fry you a bit?
Rosie Rose's fries.
I just love that conversation, about how we can actually use our awareness to our advantage in the creation of your business. Like most people have this so one of the big judgments that I see, particularly with men in business, is they have to be stressed out. They have to be stressed out to show how much they work, And then you're like, oh my God, your job is so stressful. Like, do you ever think, how do you de-stress? I give great massage. Maybe that will contribute to you and it'll allow you to unwind because, you work so hard. Friggin' make it easy for yourselves. Talk to people's judgments.
Now, I actually read the chapter last night just to come up to speed again. But I'll tell you what, I have heard this for 4.5, 5 years, and I finally got it last night. Gary, Simone says, every choice you make in a business should be about the kingdom of we. And I've always had like a funk that I couldn't quite get my head around the kingdom of we. If it isn't, you cut off the level of growth and change that is possible, and you limit what you can receive from other people. The real power of the kingdom of we is being able to choose what works for you and for everybody else. Because most of us, and especially as a woman, we choose what works for everybody else, and we put ourselves last. This is reframing it and go, okay, well, what will work for me and for everyone else? 5 years.
I just love that. Like, if it isn't, you cut off the level of growth and change that is possible for you. Limit what you can receive from other people. Like, and this is how come I adore this book. This book is all about what you can actually receive from your business, what you can create that works for you. This, like, what I love about the Access tools is that we don't say, here's a template, create your life. We go, hey, here are the tools, play with it. See what works, see what doesn't work. at least give it, what if you could never fail, would you choose everything? And to actually include you in the creation of your business, because most people, let's face it guys, in mainstream business, most people cut themselves off to do business. They leave Michelle at the door, to walk in. And what we're looking at is business that actually includes you, adds to your life, contributes to you. And when you're asking these questions from the book, like this book, I've been reading this book a few years now, and it still continues to pop like juicy. I'm doing energy pulls tomorrow, and tonight I was going through the question like about, what could you contribute to this project? What ideas do you have? Exactly how would you like this to look? Exactly what does that mean to you? I mean, you could do that for like you can do that everything, and also know what's the expense for now or the future. What's the, what do you have to put into this project? And I know I'm talking about Tanya's project, but that's the one that came up, so that everyone has some type of project or creation going on. So there's the question.
You could be doing a family holiday and preparing for that, or it could be a party, a big celebration. It's like they're all projects that you have in the business of your life.
Yeah. And remember, the truth will always feel light, and the lie will be heavy. If you don't want to work for someone. And the other thing as well, if someone's doing wrongness and judgment in business, it's not real. You can just be aware of that's where they're functioning from. And then you have a choice to work with them or not. Melanie's gone.
How is everyone?
That's what I was just thinking, looking at all these faces. Yeah. And what's brilliant actually is you spoke about joy of business really well, because joy of business is changing. The classes are changing. It used to be a 101 and 102. A 101 was a 1 day and 102 was a 2-day class. And now they're doing a 1-day access business and money and a 3-day business done different masterclass. And and the thing is people don't always get what joy of business is. And this is what it is. It is like organizing the holiday even, do you know what I mean? But exactly what Tanya was talking about. Imagine having these tools, how much more you can create by having this information. So we have the book, we have the classes, we have JCFs all over the world that are there, to, kind of help you in those kind of sticky areas of what's going on.
What Melanie just said is brilliant, and I'll give you an example of this. I was working in the States, and my sister was an hour flight from where I was working. And when I went down, I was looking to keep some time. I hadn't seen her in a while. And as I was down there, my sister was cooking dinner, and my niece was doing a project, and I had my Mac open. I was making a little video for a promo for energy pulls. And I had my little Mac open, and I'll always ask who can contribute to my projects. And as I was playing on the iMovie, she started adding little colors and sprinkles and graphics, and that place of the joy of business from contribution and space and what can you create, and getting clear that you can create money from fun, that you can create business. And what if the purpose of business is to get everything that you desire, is to receive more than you ever thought was possible. And so basically the two of us ended up playing, with the video. I know you've done this before as well, Melanie, because it reminded me of that. And it's where everyone becomes included and nothing is excluded from judgment. You know what I mean? And that's really the beauty of this, where you're looking at the kingdom of we is where you're willing to have communion with everyone and not eliminate anything.
And it's actually the last line in the book. The real power of the kingdom of we is being able to choose what works for you and everybody else. So a lot of us seem to think that we have to function in order for us to be right. We have to make somebody else wrong, or that we know business better than someone else. And this chapter is a great example of it, that when you're willing to look at it for exactly what it is, so much more can be created. I like the last line of that one, because everybody wins.
Totally. And the other piece that I like as well, thanks for bringing that up, because you reminded me what I was looking at. We're all infinite beings doing business beyond anything else. Whereas like there's this whole focus sometimes of women in business, men in business. And I love this, like, understanding a man's and a woman's way of doing business is a great tool. It's fun and it allows you to see what's required when you're doing business with people. But don't let this point of view become a limitation, because really you're not a man or a woman in business, you're an infinite being. If you limit yourself to doing business as a man and a woman, you're not doing business from the expansiveness of what is possible, because you've put a definition in place. Michelle talked about this earlier. When you do business like a man or woman, you aren't really making it about the business, you're making it about yourself. And this whole piece is about that whole benevolent capitalism, where everyone gets greater possibilities from the creation of the business. Including
and going back when Rachel was talking about, you know, getting all the family involved and everything, my daughter and I were having a conversation in the car on coming home from school one day, and she's like, what do you got going on? And I'm like, well, I've got a foundation class coming up. Now she's 11, so she actually created a poster. I had a floating head, my head was floating on it, but she created a poster and it was like, here you go, you can share this around. And I was like, wow, what does she know about this class that I'm unwilling to know?
Totally.
Look
Nice.
a little bit blissed out. So it's the joy of business face. What happens when you have joy of business? We all start looking a bit like this.
A bit better than my face the other night when I did the reference materials. Man, I was fried.
Yeah.
I couldn't speak at the end.
Oh, very good. So does anybody have any questions before we finish up? Now's your chance. Next week's last chapter.
I think we should have a week after where we get all of us on.
Yeah. And I'll talk at the same time.
I suppose before we finish tonight, what I would just like to say to people is that having the business and the life that really is joyous for you is a continuous choice. And I see people that they come to a decision and they stop all the possibilities. To mind people, I can do that myself in any moment, you know. I'm not doing this anymore, or this is too hard. And the moment that you say that business is hard, or I'm not doing this anymore, you've actually stepped out of ease, joy and glory. And what if you were to never quit and never give up on having a life and business that actually adds value and joy to your life? And whatever that is for you, whatever that is for you, go do it, be it, you know. And years ago I gave up teaching Pilates because I was like, hey, I don't make too much money on that, you know. And I missed it so much. I was like, I'm going back teaching pregnancy Pilates and Pilates simply for the joy of it. I love movement. I love bodies. I love my pregnancy girls. So guys, you know, don't make it about the money. Make it about what is joy, what is fun for you, and the money will come. It really will. It really, really will.
And keep your Joy Business book on your desk. And here's mine. It's all fucked. But whenever I'm like, oh, and you feel stuck, or it's just like, well, hang on, let me just get the book. And I go back and I go, oh, okay, thanks. And keep rereading it. So, you know, I actually did this as a book club back in July. And then we did this I think this started in October. So keep reading it, because it changes, and it changes all the time. And there's something you don't see. Yeah. What contribution can it be to you and your business? And the ease and the fun of your business and living, joy and the expansion.
And make sure to employ the earth in your business.
Yes.
I love all your faces. And as well too, like if anyone, you know, kind of creates something after doing these book clubs, or you know has a change based on awareness, like we love hearing stories of what occurred from joining any of, like, you know, I'm sure you love feedback when you facilitate classes and stuff too, but just to hear the things that get created, because we're all on this together. This has been going on for nearly 6 months, I think. 24 chapters every week. JCFs and people have showed up every week. We still have another week to go, and it's been brilliant. But it's like people are curious as to what the joy of business is, and I think tonight was a brilliant example. Like the conversation with Tanya was where these tools can take us. You know what I mean? That the information is phenomenal, and a lot of people don't actually have access to it yet. So it's like we're on the cutting edge of business and negotiating and creating, having these extra little bits of information in our little back pocket or in our book on our desk, as Michelle would do.
I listened to a call that Rebecca, Lauren, and Sarah did for CFs and BFs in Australia, and they were saying there are like 3.5 million people in Australia looking for access. Mm-hmm. So they've tapped into it some way or another. They've signed up on the website some way. And what ease can we create in their businesses, and what can we create and change in their life and their business and their living just through, you know, just one question.
Oh my God, Michelle, I'm so glad, because you just reminded me. I'm just back from New York. There's 8.1 million people in New York, and the 5 people that came to my bars class in New York were looking for a class for 6 months. There's only 2 bars facilitators in the Long Island.
No way.
Yeah, it's ready to be exploded, the east coast of the States, and London for sure, you know. Guys, you know, the people are out there. They are. Just ask for them to show up, you know. And is it okay to add this, Mel? If you're one of these people that get disappointed about, oh, my class didn't show up, always remember our beautiful Cass Thomas, who birthed Access to Europe, sat in Italy in her home place with her first bars class. No one showed up, and what did she do? She ran bars on a pretend head. I mean, that's the joy of business. She was like, I'll just sit here and run bars, and she had 2 sign-ups for her next class. So it's all very well. We sometimes forget where Gary started out in his garage with 6 people in his first class. You know, just remember, Cass Thomas, she's hundreds bodies classes now, very successful business. And here she is holding a head, pretending to run bars. So, you know, don't give up.
Yeah. And also ask, you know, like have the awareness of what is it creating for the future, because there may not be anyone that shows up now, or could be like the first Pamper event could be, you know, only 3 people, and you guys, whether your partner had a projection that she was going to have 6 or 10 there, and take a look at, well, actually, what is this creating now, and for now and the future.
It's a commitment to constant creation, no matter what
Continuous.
happens next.
Yeah.
Yep, sure is. Cool.
That's great. So we'll leave it there for today, and we'll be back next week at the same time with, I'll have to check, Be You and Change the World. It's not the book, it's the chapter. So we'll see you then. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.